Hey, everybody. Welcome to Adapter Parish episode 102, our 4-year spectacular. We'll get to talking about the best and worst of the adaptations we discussed in the last 12 months, but first, our next episode. Halloween is coming up, and it's time for things to get spooky again. We've looked at classic horror like Frankenstein and Dracula, and last year we decided to be both creepy and kooky by examining the Addams Family, but this year we're leaning into sci-fi horror with the paranoid classic The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. We'll be discussing Jack Finney's original novel, as well as 4 movie adaptations produced from 1956 to 2007. Will it be terrifying, genuinely? Too cheesy for words. As of this recording, I genuinely don't know, but that'll be coming out in 2 weeks on Tuesday, October 19th, just in time for Halloween. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections about today's episode or any others that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on Patreon at patreon.com/adaptcast. We've got a patron-only community and our bi-weekly bonus show, Adapter Parish Plus, with episodes releasing every Tuesday between episodes of this show. We hope you check it out. Show notes from this and all other episodes can be found at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Adapter Parish, episode 102, our 4-year spectacular. Hello and welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
I'm Ari Lipshaw, and the last thing that Jeremy said to me before the mics picked up was, I didn't like them. They were gross.
Yeah. You were talking about those gross pickles you buy.
They're not gross.
They're super gross. They're really funky and gross.
They're fermented. They're like classic New York City pickles. They're not vinegared. They're fermented.
Gross.
They're so good. They're like the kombucha of pickles.
They're just funky. They're like sucking on cold feet.
They're like kind of tingly. They have like an active fermentation going, so they're like actually like, it's weird to say your pickles are carbonated, but they're definitely slightly fizzy.
Thanks, I hate it. Do you want to do our show? You don't want to do our show.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Jesus.
I don't even know what sport that's from.
I'm excited. I'm not even going to say. So it's football, just in case anyone thought I didn't know.
I didn't know if it was football or basketball.
It's football. I'm pretty sure. Well, now I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, Anyway.
I look forward to this every year. I feel like you're not looking forward to this as much as I am, which is totally fine because I'm excited about it. And can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for everybody, is the reason you're not excited is because we just spent like months talking about Les Mis and now we're just going to talk about Les Mis some more because it's a retrospective?
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know, just from sort of a psychological standpoint, I feel like it's been a rough year in many ways for everyone. Let me put it this way. If you are listening to this and you feel like I don't want to think about things that were happening a year ago, I was very stressed out and sad during that time, I hereby give you permission not to listen, because I just think doing a retrospective when the year has been tough, you sort of have to do it with some sensitivity because it's not been 100% positive. A lot of stuff has happened to us in the last year, both good and bad.
I know, that's true.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that's keeping me going with this.
Okay.
We're only talking about the last year in terms of the show.
Right.
Which is nice.
Right.
Because the show has been really fun for the last year.
It has been fun. I feel like, though, when I think about, I don't know, I just have the kind of memory that, when I think about something that I was reading or something that I was watching, it really places me in that time.
Yeah.
So, if I think about, what was I doing when I was reading this book, sometimes what I was doing was being very anxious and upset about things that were happening in the world. Does that make sense?
So when I was a kid, I stayed home from school one day because I was sick and I had a really bad cold and I felt like shit. And my parents got me Spaceballs on VHS.
Uh-huh.
And I think I watched it 3 or 4 times that day. I still can't watch Spaceballs without having the sense memory of that really, really awful sick headache.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is I have no idea what you're talking about.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I guess I'm alone in this.
You're completely alone. I have no idea.
I mean, should we? Okay, let's see. What were we doing a year? So, just to place this in time, our little baby is turning 2 years old next week. And so a year ago this week, he would have been almost 1, which is crazy. We were looking at some videos of him from a year ago, and boy, we thought he was a little kid. He was a baby.
Well, that was when he was like turning into a little kid. Now
Yeah.
he is a little kid.
Now he is a little kid. Well, it also is like, I think I might have mentioned this on the show before. He was kind of a slow walker, like slow to walk, just slow to kind of do gross physical milestones.
He wasn't interested.
He just wasn't interested.
He was really into doing gross physical milestones.
Yeah, but
his poops were epic.
Yeah. He's going to be embarrassed one day when he hears this. So when he was
Sweetie,
turning,
I don't know if you knew this, but everybody poops.
when he was turning 1, he was not walking. Like, you know how a lot of babies like walk on their first birthday or thereabouts? He didn't walk until he was 17 months old. So now when we go to the playground and everything, and I see these little tiny little nuggets like tearing all around, I'm like, how is that? That's a baby. That's is walking though. How? What? Why? No, impossible. Because our baby, I just think of walking as something that a much older child does.
He waited until he knew he would be good at it, which is something he comes by honestly.
He comes by it honestly. Now he tears all around. We were like starting to get slightly concerned, and then he just took off on his own. Talking he had down. Like he was like, I'm just gonna concentrate on talking for now, if you don't mind. Like, I'm just gonna focus my energy 100% on like talking and learning words, and I'll do walking later. It's fine, Mama Dada. It's fine.
We have a kid now.
We could just talk about him. Like, maybe we could just talk about like the kid for the whole episode.
No, I want to talk about adaptations.
Okay,
because that's what our show is about.
All right. Well, we adapted a baby into a toddler, and now he
adapted himself. We were just there to make sure he was fed.
Yeah,
we did very little for him. He's been handling all of this.
He's been doing great.
We have a show about adaptation.
Yeah,
and every year we do a spectacular. And I want to walk everyone through how this is going to work. If this is your first time joining us for a spectacular, here's how it's going to work. Shall I?
Yes. You shall.
We're going to do a bunch of top 10s. We're going to look at the top 10 adaptations that we watched or listened to or experienced this year. We're going to talk about the top 10 pieces of casting for those adaptations that we experienced this year. We're going to talk about the bottom adaptations. We're going to save that for the end because that's the fun one.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got a couple extra little surprise fun things we're going to throw in along the way.
Yes.
We're going to talk about how much we looked at this year, a whole bunch of different things.
Yes.
I'm going to kind of do the minute-long version of how we make our top 10s.
Sure.
We do them draft style because way back at the beginning, I've told this story every single year at the Spectacular. Way back at the beginning for our first Spectacular, we thought, here's what we'll do. We'll spend time making a top 10 list together. And we had a big fight. And then we didn't do it.
We fought.
Because we could not agree on anything.
There were tears.
So we decided to do everything draft style. So the way this is going to work is we've created a short list together. And whoever goes first, it's going to be me this year, gets to pick whatever number 1 on the list is. And then number 2 goes to the next person, and so on and so forth until we have built our top 10.
Yep.
If one of us says a thing that the other disagrees with, what do they do? Nothing. They do nothing because they have no recourse whatsoever.
Yeah, that was like when I nominated Bruce the Shark as best cast in Jaws, and you were like, what? And I was like, yeah, huh? And you were like, that's dumb. And I was like, too bad. It's on the list now.
There's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do. Yes, and you're going first by the coin toss, which was your brain deciding that you were going to go first.
No, it was the coin toss we did 4 years ago because we've been switching back and forth.
Gotcha.
You went first last year, so I get to go first this time.
I'm glad that you know that.
I listened to the episode.
I know, I understand.
This wasn't something I've been holding on to for a year. I've just been waiting for this.
Listen, I wouldn't put it past you.
Up until half an hour ago, if you a gun to my head, I wouldn't have known who went first last year.
Although, again, like 50-50 flip, so coin toss.
I mean, I may not have lost. What's the most you ever lost in a coin toss? That's from a movie. Don't worry about it. Do you want to do some numbers?
Yes. This year, in a break from tradition, Jeremy will be doing the numbers because I got overwhelmed by addition and did not want to do it.
You had a bit of a week.
That's
okay.
I'm tired.
That's totally fine.
I had a new job. I got stuff going on.
All right. So the first thing we have to look at is how many pages of book we read this entire year. In the last 12 months, how many pages of book have we read for this show?
We have read, drumroll please, 5,619 pages of book. Now, I have a question.
Yes.
What percentage of those were Les Miserables?
I think it's about 25%. What was Les Mis? Les Mis was like 1,400?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's about 25%.
And in contrast, how many pages did we read last year? Well, year 1, we read some hefty novels.
That's the thing. This year we did a lot of short books, but we did Les Mis, so it kind of made up for it. Year 1, we did like almost 7,000.
We read almost 7,000 pages. Then the other 2 years, I think it was like 3,500.
3,600 and 3,500.
Yeah, and then so this year it was definitely more, but it was like that was Les Mis right there.
It was even more than Les Mis.
Yeah.
Like, even if we didn't do Les Mis, we would have done more than we did those years. So
well,
anyway,
also, like, I counted the Addams Family. It was 320 pages, but it was 320 pages of, like, cartoons, you know? So
Yeah.
it's not exactly the same.
so that's pages.
Yeah, that's pages.
Length of time.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, I don't know the answer because I'm looking at your screen and you're hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
How much time in hours and minutes? Is that how you're going to give it to me?
How about days?
In days?
Yeah, let's do days.
Okay. And I just want to reiterate something that I don't know that we necessarily mention because we don't always talk about like how we watch these things, but like we always watch everything together.
Mhm.
We've never once, I don't think,
Yes,
ever
once.
for the podcast.
Once, and it'll come up in a minute.
Okay. Watch.
There's one exception.
Watch something separate. We both watch the same thing but separately.
Kind of.
Okay. All right. How many days of time of content did we watch this year?
9 days and 43 minutes.
That's a lot. Like, you know, what can you say?
216 hours
206
and 43 minutes.
It's a lot.
not the most we've ever done.
Yeah.
Kind of. I think it's the most we've ever done together because if we go back, the 216 last year we did 230 hours.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is last year was Robin Hood.
Oh, and you watched some of that by yourself.
I watched all of that BBC show by myself.
Yeah.
And you only watched a little bit of it with me.
Yeah.
So no, we didn't watch the same thing separately.
Yeah.
But I watched that by myself and we counted it.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't watch it together.
Yeah,
So
I'm talking
this
about
is-
watching the same thing separately. We never do that.
No,
like
yeah.
I feel like we've listened to sometimes we listen to some like TV review podcasts where like the two hosts will watch the same episode of something, but they don't sit down and watch it together, and then they come together and talk about it. We never do that.
No.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we
that's-
live together, so I guess that why would we?
I mean, us living together is the only reason the show has gone on for more than 100 episodes.
It's true. It's so true.
Yeah, so that's a lot. That's a year is only 365 days.
9 of those
Nine
days,
of them were just watching shit for this show.
night and day.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. Would you like to jump into our first top 10?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
And you're going to go first as previously
Yep.
as previously determined.
Yep. So this is going to be the top 10 adaptations that we discussed this year. Now, I bet you can pick what my number one is. And I'm even, here's the gift I'm going to give you.
Okay.
Because the thing that's nice, you don't really win anything if you get it before the other person does in the draft. You get the honor of introducing it.
No, and you get the joy of seeing the other person having to cross it off their list.
Yep. So what do you think is my number one adaptation of the year?
I think
Yep.
that your number one adaptation of the year
Mhm.
is Les Miserables, the musical by Claude Michel Schoenberg and Hélène Boubliot
And Herbert Kretzmer.
and Herbert Kretzmer.
You're absolutely correct.
Yay!
That is my number one.
Not the movie, the musical.
The musical.
Stage musical.
The stage musical, which is available in many different forms. I mean, that was the thing we found out when we were going through it, is that like there's no definitive filmed version. If you love the 10th anniversary in 95, that's great. If
Yep.
you love the 25th anniversary in 2010, that's also great. There was the staged concert from like a year or two ago. They're all great.
Yes.
None of them are anything less than great as far as the like filmed versions of staged concerts go.
Yeah.
And all the albums are great. To me, they all come together to make one thing, which is a record of Les Miserables the musical, which is by far, I think, far and away, the best adaptation we even discussed this year.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that I have seen it on stage myself,
Mhm.
and it was an amazing production, and it was an experience I will always remember. But like, what can you say about it that we haven't already said on the show before?
What can you say?
I feel like the thing that I can say about it is that I don't know if you know this, because certainly the people who created the musical never talk about it. When it first came out, it got a lot of bad reviews. Did you know that?
No, because they never mentioned it even once in all those documentaries.
They-
They did not harp on it. They definitely didn't have a chip on their shoulder.
No,
about it.
not a chip on the shoulder at all about this. But it actually did. It actually got bad reviews at the beginning.
Shocking.
And then, to their great pleasure, it turned out audiences loved it so much, and millions of people around the world have watched it for decades. I honestly, yes, they talk about it constantly,
Yeah.
and I mean, I would too,
Yeah.
if the same thing happened to me. But I feel like that's kind of indicative of something really big, which is that it kind of is this. It's not necessarily the kind of thing you would have thought would work beforehand,
Yeah.
but it is kind of a perfect marriage of subject matter of content
Mhm.
to format.
Yes.
Les Mis
Agreed.
works as a musical.
And the funny thing is, like, that seems so obvious to us now because Les Mis is so big and it's so in the culture. But I feel like at the time that wasn't necessarily like an obvious connection. Like, you're making a musical out of what?
Yeah.
That book, that long book? Are you really?
It's just it works so well, and it's amazing, and it's been around for years,
Mhm.
and it's just incredible.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I feel like in every top 10 list, there is a spot for like a really, really book accurate like miniseries.
Mm.
And I feel like we didn't have a ton of those this year that was just like, oh my gosh, it has just jumped off the page. You know, I was looking for a Wuthering Heights that did that, and we watched like 8 Wuthering Heightses, and I never got it.
No.
I never got one that I felt that way about. And so this is a bit of an obscure pick. And the other thing I think I will say is the thing that I think we kind of talk about every year because we sort of always come back to like, what do we value in an adaptation?
Mhm.
And I think we certainly don't value above and beyond like, oh, it was so accurate. It was so accurate to the book. It was exactly like the book. Like, that's not necessarily something that we always respond to, but if you do it right, it can be really a joy to watch,
Mhm.
especially if it's a book that you really enjoy and really want to see the detail. I think that's part of it, right? Is like a book can be so detailed, and sometimes with a mini series, you have the space to inject some of that great detail.
Much like Fauchelevent with Valjean in the coffin, you have buried the lead.
I have buried the lead. So all this to say, my choice for the number 2 spot in our top 10 list is the 1986 TV miniseries A Little Princess,
Ooh.
starring Maureen Lipman and others. There's not a lot of like celebrity casting. I mean, you've got Maureen Lipman, who's really amazing as Miss Minchin. You've got Miriam Margolyes, of course, who's great. You've got Amelia Shankly, I believe is her name,
I believe so.
as Sarah, which is just like they just did a good job casting her. They did such a thoughtful job with the script and showing more of her life in India and her life with Captain Crew and some of his stuff that he had going on. Remember there was that whole storyline with like her nurse in India that kind of got resolved a little bit better than even the book does. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I think they were making stabs at addressing colonialism like a little bit with, moderate success. But I just thought if you really love a book, sometimes you just like to see the book kind of spring off the page
Mhm.
and come to life. And that was how I felt about this one. And I really wanted to give it a spot in the top 10 because I don't think we saw, other than Les Mis, which we'll probably continue to talk about, I don't know that we saw too many adaptations this year that really kind of scratched that page to screen itch for me.
Yeah.
So
There
I'm
were-
going to go with Little Princess,
there were
1986.
Couple for me, but that one was so delightful. And the only thing I'll say, it'll take me 10 seconds. All of the other ones disappointed me. This was the only one that didn't disappoint me.
Of A Little Princess.
Of A Little Princess.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to do. Like it's deceptively hard to do.
Yeah.
To make this story about a little girl who's very badly treated. It's hard to reflect the actual moral of the story. You kind of risk going too Pollyanna-ish.
Yeah.
But you also risk going too dark. Like, I just thought this one really walked that nice fine line. Like, the tone was right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Your turn.
Okay. Number 3 on our list. Speaking of dark and speaking of tone, I'm gonna throw one out here. It's not Les Mis. It's not even really a book adaptation. I just feel like something happens every now and then where you have a perfect storm, where you have the right people directing the right material, written by the right people, starring the right people, with the right production design, the right music, and everything comes together to make something that I would define as perfect. And when I say perfect, when I say something is a perfect movie, I don't mean it's the greatest movie ever. I mean, every part of it works. That to me is a perfect movie. And there's lots of perfect movies. Another perfect movie that is number 3 on our list is Addams Family Values.
I knew it. I had my pen poised in my hand because I knew this is what you were going to say.
It's perfect. Like, I mean, what can we say about it we didn't say in our original episode, but let me try to condense it a little bit. There's something, and I want to be really specific about why I'm choosing Addams Family Values and not the Addams Family, the first one. One of the things that we found going back to the source material, going back to Charles Addams comics, going back to the John Astin TV show, it's defined by, I would say, one big thing, which is, well, I'll say 2 things that kind of go together. One, they are a big family who love each other. That's one part about it. But the other thing is the comedy of it comes from the fact that they're supposed to be the weirdos. They're supposed to be the weird family. But if we look at it, them being weird is defined by like a family where multiple generations live under one house.
Yeah.
And everyone talks all the time. They're defined by being, a matriarch and a patriarch who love each other
Yeah.
deeply and are still like sexually active,
Yeah.
and are passionate about each other.
Gross.
Like they are actually an amazing family.
Yeah.
They're actually an amazing example of what a family could be. So for Adam's Family Values, the reason why I will always prefer Adam's Family Values to the original is because in the original, the big thing they came up with for the plot was that Fester wasn't Fester, quote unquote. Turns out at the end, it actually was Fester the whole time. But the whole plot is based around the fact that he's this guy who looks like Fester who's pretending to be Fester so they can get their money. And then he gets his memory back and it turns out it was him the whole time. But because the entire movie is based on him not being part of the family, he's not Fester, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So in Adam's Family Values, every member of the family gets to be the member of the family.
Yes.
And like Carol Kane gets recast. Grandma gets recast as Carol Kane. I think Joan Cusack is an amazing villain.
Yeah.
Everything at the summer camp is incredible. It is an incredible movie centered around perfect casting.
Yeah.
Like absolute pitch perfect, career defining, character defining casting.
Yeah.
Like I know there are a lot of people out there who think that Gomez Addams is John Aston because they grew up on the, the original Addams Family.
Yeah.
And I completely understand that, but Raul Julia is Gomez.
He's our Gomez. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I love John. I hadn't seen, I don't think much of the original, if any, before we watched it for this, and I loved John Aston. I thought he was great, but like Raul Julia, like we grew up with these Addams Family movies.
Yeah. I just think it is this perfect. I feel like there are two kind of perfect versions of the Addams Family. There's the original comic strip and there's this movie.
Yeah.
And everything else, even though there's great stuff, this is the Addams Family. It's a perfect adaptation.
Before we move on, just as a little side note, just a delightful piece of information I recently discovered, and Jeremy will put this in the show notes. I just encourage everyone to take a look at a picture of Angelica Houston's mother, like a picture of her as a young woman holding Angelica Houston as a baby, because she looks like Morticia Addams. And apparently I heard that Angelica Houston took the role because she thought that it was sort of like in tribute to her mother, who always kind of looked like that. It's amazing. When I saw this picture, I thought it was a picture of someone dressed as Morticia Addams, like in character, and it is just the way that she looked. She was a beautiful, striking woman, amazingly.
Yep.
Shocking. The mother of Angelica Houston was a beautiful, striking woman.
I mean, for everything I say about Raul Julia being perfect, Angelica Houston is also like, it's
also perfect,
career defining,
yes.
character defining. She's amazing.
Yeah. My turn. All right. My next pick, apparently I'm into sort of latter quarter 20th century British TV miniseries. Because my next one, I mean, how could this not make the list? It features one of my favorite actors of all time in a role that would have been, I would argue, would have been career defining had he not immediately followed it up with a role that was even more career defining as the best Sherlock Holmes of all time. This is the 1979 Rebecca starring none other but Jeremy Brett.
I mean, I would even argue that, like, not only did he follow it up with something that was more career defining, he was following Laurence Olivier,
right?
Who many people would say is forever going to be associated with the role,
right? Like, sort of shouldering the burden of picking up this role that was so iconic for again, one of the most famous actors of all time.
Yeah,
like again. When I said before we didn't watch too many things that jumped off the page, I feel like this is another one that is just like page to screen. Again, we don't necessarily value this above all things. It was just something that I responded to really well in this particular version. Just having read the book and going, yes, these are those characters. This is the plot. This is Maxim. It is hitting the notes. It is walking that fine line. He's not too aggressive. He's not too abusive. He's also not too much of a sad sack. They have chemistry between them. You can see why she's interested in him, but also you can see that like dark side, but it's not so much of a dark side that you would think she would be afraid of him. Do you know what I mean? Like this performance is really, really good. I mean, I guess if it has a fault in casting, I think one of the things we talked about was Joanna David was like sort of a little too mature and self-assured as the new Mrs. De Winter. But I don't know. It's so enjoyable to watch an adaptation like this where it is clear that the filmmakers really, really cared about doing justice to the book. And it's really great. Like, again, I think one of the things we talk about is here are two things we like. We like it when someone writing an adaptation loves the book and either is really faithful to the intention of the original author and really respects and honors it, or they put their own creative spin on it in such a way that honors both the original book and that screenwriter's experience of retelling that story, if that makes sense.
I think so.
Like that sort of, we kind of like sticking really closely to the book or a lot of originality in a really consistent way. And I think this is sort of the former rather than the latter. But it was so enjoyable. Really, really good. Rebecca was great to do. But this was definitely my favorite.
I agree with that. It was very good.
Your turn.
Number 5. Looking at my list. You know what? I'm going to shake things up a little bit. I'm going to bump one up a bit. I talked about Addams Family Values being like a perfect movie. I think there's another thing that's really great because, something can be kind of best in class. And I think that's important to talk about with these type of things because, Addams Family Values is this very like cartoony kind of thing. But there's something else that we've looked at a lot on our show. It's come up many times, which is how do you handle adapting something where it's being told in the first person?
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to do. You could do it a number of different ways. Someone actually emailed us about this, and I told them to look at our Handmaid's Tale episode because that was something where it was a really great example of you take something that's really kind of viscerally told in the first person, and you have someone like Harold Pinter adapt it, and he basically removes the character entirely, and you get no view into what's going on inside their head.
Harold Pinter also a strange choice to write about women,
yeah.
I would say.
But then you get the new TV show where it decides to handle it by occasionally having the character acknowledge the camera, but mostly having voiceover.
Yeah.
That's how it's kind of structurally how they decide to handle it. One of the things we looked at this year, I think, is best in class for how to handle a first-person narrative in a movie. And that's High Fidelity, the movie, with John Cusack. It is my absolute, of all time, favorite version of a story wherein the main character actually addresses the camera and addresses the audience. And I know that's going to sound shocking for someone who loves Fiddler on the Roof as much as I do. Fiddler on the Roof is in my top 5.
Yeah.
But he's never really, like, he's
Is
dressing...
he talking to the audience or is he talking to God?
No, he's talking to the audience.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't need to explain to God what tradition
That's
is.
fair
He's
enough.
explaining to the audience what tradition is.
Why are we talking about Fiddler on the Roof? Yes,
because
of course you're right.
I can't not talk about Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
High Fidelity, I love it so much. And I love it so much because of how hard it is to watch. It's not like these are the only types of movies I like watching where the main character is kind of a shithead, but this is one of the few where I love it because he is a shitty person who by the end, his great arc is he's a shitty person who's kind of realizing I should not be such a shitty person.
Yeah.
John Cusack is amazing. I think it is career best work. I think the writing is incredible. I think the directing is incredibly subtle and assured. It was like Jack Black's first thing. The supporting cast is amazing, but again, I go back to the thing that makes it jump out to me is they looked at a book where the main character is addressing the audience constantly and said, you know what? We're going to do that, but we're going to lean into it.
Yeah.
And John Cusack addressing the audience throughout the movie, to me, is the best example of that in any movie I personally have ever seen, and I'm really excited we got to do it this year. I love High Fidelity.
Awesome.
That's number 5.
Yeah.
Your turn, sweetie.
All right, number 6. All right. This, again, I don't know, something about like the sort of epic saga this year was something I was really responding to because my next pick...
I feel like you would do the epic ones, which is why I'm sticking to the shorter ones.
Yeah, that's fine. And all of yours I certainly agree with. But I think you'll agree with this one because my next pick is Les Miserables, the 1934 French trilogy.
I'm crossing one off my list.
I
thought you would get to it, which is why I replaced mine with High Fidelity.
I don't know what to say about this one other than it was one of the biggest surprises of the year for me because I did not think watching, 5 hours of black and white French adaptation of Les Mis was going to be in any way enjoyable. I didn't think it would be pleasant to watch. I was sort of picturing more of like the Mary Pickford little princess that was like kind of batshit and not good and boring. But this was like, man, it had a point of view
Mhm.
and it had like directorial choices. They didn't just set the camera up and go. It was fascinating to watch. Like it made me interested in what was going on in French cinema in the 1930s, which I think is quite a feat for me. But also like the way that it told the story was really amazing. The script was good, the pacing was good, the casting was good. You know, the characters just felt like real people. It didn't feel like a movie. It felt like someone had sort of set up a camera in front of things that were actually happening and said, go. Again, we watched a lot of Les Mis. This was definitely one of the up until we got to the musical, like one of the best adaptations of Les Mis that we watched.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say like necessarily that like it was faithful to the plot, of course, but like really faithful to the character and the intention and just kind of honoring the epic scope of what that 1,400 pages of story is. Like to say, no, I need 5 hours. I need
Mhm.
5 hours to tell this story. Like, yeah, fuck yeah, you do. Yeah, you do need 5 hours to tell this story.
That was the thing we found out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And the other thing we found out too, sorry to jump in, but like this is the thing that set a precedent for us as we went through all of those, which is that, I mean, here's the deal. Like, this is a story that belongs to the French.
Yeah.
And there is something viscerally different
It's
about
fucking French at times.
watching a French adaptation than watching an English language adaptation.
Yeah.
Because it's their story and it just feels better.
Yes. So that's my number 6, and I will turn number 7 over to you.
It's so good. I am gonna go. I got 2 left. All right. I am gonna go with my gut on this one, even though we've just been talking about it for a while, and I am actually going counter to something I just said. Number 7 on our list is 2018's Les Miserables miniseries written by Andrew Davies, which I just think it's so important to be on the list opposite the 1934 one because we talked about it on the show, but it bookended our experience of watching like narrative, dramatic versions, non-musical versions of Les Mis.
Yeah.
This is the other side of things, which is thinking we're going to be very faithful to the spirit of the story without necessarily being completely faithful to the letter of the plot.
Yeah.
Even though it really follows the plot.
Yeah.
I feel like, I'm going to set up a spectrum here right now because on one end of the spectrum we are only going to do things that are in the original plot of the story. On the other end of the spectrum is we're going to do our own thing and we're going to change tons of stuff. And then you've got this middle ground where you're like, no, we want to honor the general structure of it, but we're going to invent things and we're going to move things around. And we're even, dare I say, gonna fix things. I mean, I said this in the episode. I feel like my big hot take coming out of all of this in regards to the original book is I feel like introducing Marius earlier on in the book is something that is not only possible, but actually I think makes the story better.
Sure.
And Andrew Davies did that in this version, and it works really well. And I feel like if Victor Hugo is watching it, it's the one thing he would look at it and go,
Mon Dieu.
that actually works pretty well. I think I might
Oh la
try
la.
that. I'm not saying he would.
Zut alors.
I'm not saying I would guarantee he would go back and do a rewrite, but I think he would look at it and go, you know what? That actually works. I respect that.
Yeah.
It is an incredible production. And the script is fantastic. And it's just one of those things where, like, yeah, Andrew Davies, does it reach the heights of 95's Pride and Prejudice?
Of course,
no.
what could?
What possibly could, but it's so good and so engaging. And I think we came out of this, I certainly came out of this thinking, as far as English language versions of Les Mis go that aren't a musical, it was the best one.
Yes.
And so engaging and so enjoyable and made so many delightful changes that I think illuminated parts of it that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
And it was great and I loved it.
I'm with you on that. So that was number 7.
That's number 7.
All right, number 8. I'm going to pick one that I think follows those two really, really nicely because I think it kind of...
Is it another version of Les Mis?
It is not. I think it
good.
kind of does both of the things that we just mentioned, which is stayed pretty faithful to the scope of the book, told the story in a directorially interesting way, and also invented stuff when necessary to support the story they were trying to tell. And that is 2020's Emma starring Anya Taylor-Joy.
Can I just say really quickly, I'm really glad some Emma made it onto this list.
Yeah, I mean,
Because we watched some,
my
because we liked
God.
all of them.
We watched so much Emma. We liked all of the traditional adaptations.
Yes.
I would not say we liked all of them.
Well, Clueless was a traditional adaptation.
Fair enough. Okay. I can see why, if you were a Jane Austen purist, I could see why you might watch this and be unmoved, right? Like, it was unusual. It was sort of shot in an unusual way. The performances were so interesting, but it was like almost stylized, some of it.
Yeah.
The movie's really broad. The costumes are totally over the top, but on purpose, right?
Yeah.
There's a point of view. It's not like when we were watching the Gwyneth Paltrow Emma and I kept getting mad that the costumes weren't accurate, because it was like they weren't accurate in a way that didn't feel intentional, even though I think you told me at one point, no, it was intentional to show more skin or whatever it was that they were trying to do.
Yeah. They were going for something. We can argue about whether it worked.
They were going for something, but maybe didn't go far enough. In this case, I think they went there, right? Like they were they just like they used costume in a way that told the story of who the characters were in such an interesting way. Like Emma's clothes were so over the top, but like in comparison to everyone else, you can see who she is as a character in contrast to what everyone else is wearing. Like she's kind of overdressed sometimes, and she thinks really highly of herself. Just the performances were interesting. It was interesting to watch. After seeing so many Emmas, it was just such a breath of fresh air to see something a little bit different and so much fun. You were so invested in these two crazy kids getting together. And also, like, again, watching 8 million versions of Emma, there was stuff in it that was surprising that we didn't see coming, or that we didn't see. Like when she gets that nosebleed at the end, it was like, wait, what is happening right now? But it was
lots of butts in it too.
Yeah, there were butts, there were boobs. It was so enjoyable. Really, really liked it, and would recommend anyone go out and watch it.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just add anything to this, like so Autumn Wilde, the director, like the thing that I appreciated about it so much, and it was on my list, so I'm glad you said it, so I don't have to. But like, I feel like one of the things that came up this year for me constantly was just how much I value clarity in direction. I love intense clarity.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I love Wes Anderson so much. Like, I love the clarity of the work that he does.
Yeah.
And this is that same kind of thing, but not in a Wes Anderson style. This is in an Autumn de Wilde style.
Yeah.
I appreciated that it was that same kind of thing, but different. I just loved how intensely like locked down the camera was, and how it wanted to show you everything, but it wanted to show you everything with intense, focused clarity. And there are other like more, auteur style adaptations of classic literature that we watch that tried to obscure things. I like something that embraced clarity.
Yeah. Are you up?
Yeah.
What number are we on? Number 9? All right, go ahead.
All right. For the 9th one, I like throwing a little bit of a curveball. I created my little spectrum there a few minutes ago. On the one end, you've got very, very faithful. In the middle, you've got pretty faithful, but make some changes. And on the other end, you've got, we're just going to make something different. But hopefully, we're going to embrace the spirit of the thing we're doing. This one was, I think, for me, one of the biggest surprises of the year, and that was 1970s Wuthering Heights, starring Timothy Dalton.
What a riot! What a wild ride!
My God, I loved it so much because my expectations were so low, and Wuthering Heights was such a slog. That was the big thing about that, is that like Wuthering Heights is not fun to read. It became fun to read once I got it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And a lot of the versions took it way too seriously. This one made a lot of changes, but I was fine with all of it because what it replaced it with was something really sexy and lurid and scandalous and dangerous, which is what the book was.
Yeah.
So even though the plot doesn't match up one for one, I feel like it embraced the spirit of it in a way most other versions didn't.
Sure.
And it just focused on being a good movie. And it is a good, fun, exciting movie that it blew my expectations out of the water.
Yeah.
I was so happy with it. Even though, like I mentioned before, there are perfect movies. I don't know that I would even say this is a perfect movie. But as far as adaptations of Wuthering Heights go, I feel like it's a perfect example of what you can get when you don't worry so much about making something faithful to the plot, but you worry about making something faithful to the spirit of it. And I actually think it got closer to the spirit of the book than most other quote unquote faithful adaptations we watched.
Yeah. I would tend to agree. So my number 10 is actually a pretty good follow up to that.
Hmm.
I've got a couple left on my list, and I was trying to decide, who was going to make the final cut here. And I think, like, again, I like what you were saying about an adaptation being really faithful to the spirit of the book, because we read a book that was about two little German girls in different German cities
Okay.
discovering that they were actually twins. And when Disney picked this up, they were like, no, we got to move this to the US, and we got to have summer camp, and we got to put Haley Mills in it, who's British, but actually we'll say she's from Boston, and then she's also going to have a bad California accent because she's Haley Mills. 1961's The Parent Trap is a fucking amazing movie. It's so much fun. Haley Mills is amazing in it. By the way, she just got an Instagram. Everyone go follow Haley Mills on Instagram.
For real?
She's so sweet and so much fun. Yeah, she's got a new autobiography coming out.
Oh, that's nice.
She's beautiful. Like, she looks great. I just, like, again, everything is changed. Is one single element of the plot the same? No. It's a story about twins that were separated at birth, that didn't know they were twins, and they met accidentally, and they switched places. That is the only thing that was retained from the original novel by Eric Kostner, who wrote about, again, these two little girls from Vienna or whatever it was. But what a transformation, right? Like, what an adaptation to make this classic Disney film, this like classic American story out of this sort of like semi-obscure German children's book. It's so good. Like, what can I say about The Parent Trap? It's the fucking Parent Trap.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I got nothing to add. It was really, really good.
It was really fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Can I have 30 seconds to talk about an alternate?
Sure.
I got one. That's our top 10. We did it. We rounded it out. I got one that I just want to mention before we go any further. I didn't know if it was going to make the top 10. 2020's Rebecca. The only reason I'm throwing it out there is because I feel like it got shit on a lot, and I read a lot of bad reviews of it, and we talked about this at length in the episode, but it was really good.
Yeah.
And it did so many things we were looking for, and I think it really deserves a second look and was just really well made.
It almost made my list. I just didn't want to have two Rebeccas, and I felt like 1979 edged it
Yeah.
out for me.
Speaking of two of something, I also had on my alternates the Rommel Garai Emma.
Oh, it was good.
That was also really
It
good.
was really good.
That's a good top 10.
We watched a lot of good stuff this year.
Yeah.
All right. The next thing we wanted to talk about really quickly before we do our next draft was what we usually do is just talk about some of the top original works that we read or consumed in some way this
Mhm.
year. So we're not going to do a draft for this because, like, there were only 13, so the top 10 would be almost everything.
Yeah.
But, do you want to just do like one or two nominations and we can call it a day?
Yeah, I'm going to throw out a couple here that I'll tell you this. I'm not going to put Les Mis is not at my top, even though that turned out to be pretty fantastic. But I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as a couple of the other ones. I'm going to throw out like two or three
Okay.
that like genuinely surprised me and I found really enjoyable.
Yeah, maybe the element of surprise should be our criteria here.
Stuart Little was probably the biggest like pleasant surprise I had all year.
Mm-hmm.
Stuart Little as an original work, because I read it when I was a kid and it didn't make a huge impression on me. And then I read it again as an adult when we did this. And boy, howdy, is it a goddamn delight the entire way through. It is so good. Another one that was a huge surprise for me where I kind of enjoyed, I loved the manic style of the writing was The Manchurian Candidate.
Mm-hmm. That was really good.
That was, again, just more fun than I expected it to be. And then finally, in my personal, I guess, top three, Wings of Desire.
Yeah.
I'm so, like, we're not going to talk about that episode very much, but Wings of Desire turned out to be, I'd never watched it. It had been on my list for years. What a weird movie.
It was very strange.
And I loved, the biggest thing I'll say about it, if you haven't listened to that episode, is that it is, I feel like so much meaning has been ascribed to the movie. But the thing we found out from looking at it was just like, it was just made by a bunch of people who were kind of making things up as they went along. And I think it is a mistake to ascribe deep meaning to it. I think the most important thing is to go in and just experience it. And it is quite an experience as a movie. And I kind of loved it.
It is a strange and wondrous experience.
What things jumped out at you?
I mean, I guess this wasn't really a surprise to me. It was just like the culmination of something I've been dying to do for a long time. I loved making you read Valley of the Dolls so much. It made me so happy.
Yeah, fuck that book. That's a terrible book.
It was so
It's a terrible book. I loved every minute of
It
it.
was so amazing. I just gotta. I knew you'd love it. I knew you'd love it. Every year I feel like I get one. Last year it was Flowers in the Attic.
Yeah.
This year's Valley of the Dolls. I don't know what it's going to be next year, but I'm going to make you read something just schlocky.
Do you know it's the biggest page turner you made me read this year?
What's that?
Little Princess.
Oh yeah, yeah. You love Little Princess.
That book's so good.
That book's fucking slaps.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any others that are going to make your list?
I mean, I guess the other one that I would say for me that was like the biggest surprise was probably the Stepford Wives. I know we got in like a little bit of a back and forth in the comments about whether it had a feminist perspective or not, but like I found it to be surprisingly pro-woman, sort of proto-feminist. Like the sympathy with the protagonist was surprising to me.
Yeah.
From the author's perspective. We've read a lot of bullshit for male authors in the 1970s, and I thought this would be another one, and it was really interesting. It feels to me like, I said this on the episode, given the fact that Ira Levin wrote both Stepford Wives and Rosemary's Baby, it really feels to me like he had a genuine interest in sort of this female body horror experience and what it is like to inhabit a body that is so easily overtaken by other people's sort of needs and desires against your own consent. And I felt like he was respectfully trying to explore that without being lewd. And I appreciated it, and it was a big surprise to me. It was a very enjoyable book to read.
Yeah, those are some of the best things we read and watched this year.
All right.
Do you want to talk about cast?
Let's talk about top cast.
Mm-hmm. I think, just so everyone knows, we're going to spend a little bit less time on these than we did on the top adaptations, only because I think we're going to end up repeating ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
But it is your turn to go first.
Okay.
And so who's your number one? And this is either individuals or we have a few ensembles on our short list as well.
A few ensembles. I am going to maybe break with the structure and say that I have one actor who unusually has been nominated for 2 different films this year.
Oh.
So hopefully she doesn't split the vote in her category. That is Angelica Houston for both The Witches and The Addams Family.
My God.
Perfectly cast in both as a rather witchy character. One evil, one not. Morticia Addams, of course, beautiful, gothic, wonderful. Not a great mom, but doing her own thing.
But an amazing mom.
But an amazing mom in her way, like supporting her children and what they want to do with their lives, which is all we can ever really aspire to be. On the other hand, an evil witch that wants to kill children, all children everywhere. Perfectly cast in both cases. Always beautiful. Angelica Houston is my number one.
Gotcha. Okay, so number 2 falls to me.
Yes.
I got I am going to go with my gut, and I am going to go ahead and say this is one that didn't make it to our top 10, but this was the one piece of casting that delighted me more than any this year, and that was Tom Hardy as Heathcliff in 2009's Wuthering Heights miniseries.
I cannot deny.
He is incredible. This year has turned me into a Tom Hardy fan. It is the closest, I would say Timothy Dalton's like a number 2. He is the closest to what the book version of Heathcliff is, which is a villain. He is a bad person. Like the closest thing to a movie monster you can get in this kind of stuff. Like he's not sexy. He's not Ralph Fiennes. He is Tom Hardy, who is sexy in his own way. But I found his version of weirdness so perfect for this character, and it illuminated the character in a way I didn't expect. And I wish I loved the production as much as I loved his performance, because if I did, it would be up there with Pride and Prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, he's amazing. Number 2, Tom Hardy in Wuthering Heights.
Number 2. Number 3, sometimes you just get a fine performance in a film that's fallen down around you, which is sort of what you were just describing. Toni Collette as Harriet Smith in the Gwyneth Paltrow Emma. She deserved a better movie. She deserved a better actor playing Emma. She deserved a better costume. She deserved better everything because she's amazing, perfectly inspired casting.
Gwyneth Paltrow's acting is not the problem with her playing Emma. I just know you don't like Gwyneth Paltrow.
I don't like her.
That's fair.
I don't care for her.
But boy, do I agree with you.
She deserved a better everything.
Toni Collette is amazing.
Just
in
amazing, inspired. She's so good in everything she does. Just like, what can I say? It's Toni Collette.
I said this
number 3.
I said this when we did the Emma episode, but I saw a thing online that like was true. It was more true than anything I'd ever seen on the internet. And it has stuck with me for so long, which is basically that like Toni Collette is essentially like the Daniel Day-Lewis. She is essentially a Daniel Day-Lewis type thing. She just does not get the respect that Daniel Day-Lewis
I was going to
deserves.
say, except Daniel Day-Lewis won like 2 Oscars in a row, and
That-
I don't think she's ever won an Oscar.
But I mean, here's an example of the difference between the way men and women are viewed in Hollywood.
This is what I'm
Like
saying,
she gets
yeah.
to be like she is also just as much of a perfect chameleon, but she does not win all of the Oscars.
No.
And that is a bummer because she is incredible, and it was incredible in Emma.
Yes. Your turn. Number what? 4?
Number 4, I am going to go with, fuck it. This is weird, and maybe there's breaking rules that we have, because I know you just said Angelica Houston, but number 4 is the entire cast of the Addams Family
That's
and
fine.
Addams Family
That's
of
fine.
Values.
There's no rules. No rules, just right.
They're all of them. They're all incredible for all the reasons that I mentioned before. Like, Raul Julia is perfect. Angelica Houston is perfect. Carol Kane is perfect. Christopher Lloyd is perfect. Everyone is perfect. Everyone across the entire family. All of the supporting characters are perfect. Everyone is memorable. Joan Cusack, Dan Hedaya. The casts of these movies are incredible and pitch perfect. And if any movie could achieve casting that achieved 50% of the quality that this movie did, we would be surrounded by amazing movies.
Yes.
The Addams Family is perfectly cast.
Yes.
Number 5.
I think this was like the pinnacle of a high mountain, because we watched so many Emmas, and in every single one, like whoever the actor happened to be who played her, everyone better than the last. The actor who played her dad was always amazing. But the pinnacle of performance was reached in 2020 with Bill Nighy's performance as Mr. Woodhouse. He was so funny. He was so dotty. The thing with the screens, remember they were constantly like moving the screens around. It just like out of it, but also loved his daughter. There were somewhere Mr. Woodhouse was like so addled that it was a little uncomfortable to watch. Like you thought, ooh, there's something like neurologically going on with this guy. You know, it's not really funny. He just walked that line again. That sort of broad performance that we were talking about, that like broad style that it was just so perfect. He was so funny. Could not have been funnier. Just loved him. Bill Nighy in 2020's Emma.
See, I had the entire cast of that movie as an ensemble on my list.
There you go.
I don't think I'll put them on now that you've mentioned him.
It's fine.
Even though I will mention they're all great. Even my boy Johnny Flynn is so good. The cast is amazing.
All right.
But I won't say them. Instead,
this is number 6 now.
This is number 6. I'm going to do a duo.
Okay. Wow. Ooh.
I'm going to do a duo. We didn't agree to this beforehand.
We didn't agree to this.
But I'm going to do a duo.
But we also didn't agree to me nominating Angelica Houston for 2 different movies, so you go for it.
And then I did the ensemble for something she was part of.
Yeah.
Colin Wilkinson and Philip Quast as Valjean and Javert.
This is beautiful. That's beautiful.
And I am specifically talking about the Dreamcast. I'm talking about the 10th anniversary concert. Because I don't know that other than that, is there a recording of them playing Valjean and Javert together? Because
I could not tell you.
Like, Quast wasn't in the original like Barbican cast or the original Broadway cast, to my knowledge. So this is perfection. Colin Wilkinson, like, let me put him aside for a second, because the part was written for him. And there are aspects of the part musically that are only there because Colin Wilkinson played the part of Valjean. Bring him home, for example. Philip Quast, though, is perfect. He's perfect. And he's so perfect that he makes me do the thing that I hate when other people do, which is they look at someone else playing the part and they say, well, they'll never be great because they're never this person that I've decided is the perfect part. And like, that's a shitty way to look at things. And I don't like that I look at it that way, but I cannot help what my heart tells me. And my heart tells me that Philip Quast is the perfect Javert.
Sweetie, the heart wants what it wants.
And he is the Javert by which every other musical Javert will ever be measured. And some may reach the great heights that he has ascended, but I don't know that any will ever transcend him.
No one will ever do that ponytail stroking thing the way that he does, which is like sort of it's amazing.
He is so perfect and precise in every word that he says. He is amazing. And Colin, but I can't say one without the other.
Yeah. No, I get it. Well, I actually have the perfect one to follow up because this was on my list and I didn't quite know where it was going to go.
This number 7?
It's number 7 and it's Michael fucking Ball.
Yeah. In which version?
All of
them, you say?
All of them. Every role, every part, including when he went on that like TV show and sang a song. My God. He's just the best. This isn't even casting. He's just the best. We had to talk about Michael Ball some more. I just love him. Number 7, Michael Ball as Marius and others.
I mean, here's the deal. If this is an organic thing that we're building and is growing, much like a tree or like a flower in a garden, what are we at? 8?
8.
Eddie Redmayne in Les Miserables, the musical, 2012. Our other big Marius.
Yeah. I mean, he's great. What can I say?
He's on here for a very specific reason. Not only is he great, Eddie Redmayne is one of those guys, like, he impresses me every time I watch him do something. He is so deeply committed to everything he does, but he manages to bring quality to everything that he does. Not only is he great, and not only does his greatness stand on its own in that movie, his greatness also proves how not great the rest of the movie is.
Yes, because it all could have been like that.
Right?
Is what you're saying.
Like, he's proving that it could have worked, but it did not work, which maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll end up talking about it a little more when we get a little later in the episode. But
Who could say?
I could certainly, well, I mean, we could.
We could not say.
No, we could. I mean,
we could not say.
We're the only two people who
I
could.
had a glass of wine. We could not say.
Eddie Redmayne in Les Mis is amazing, and he blew me away, and he made me even more frustrated with the movie than I could possibly have been, because everyone could have been that good.
Number 9.
Go
Number
for
9.
it.
I have a couple to choose from here, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna just go with my
with
my
your heart.
go with my gut, with my butt.
What does your butt tell you?
Well, this is
The butt wants what the butt wants.
the butt wants Haley Mills apparently.
Jesus Christ. Does Haley Mills know that your butt wants her?
As an adult, as a consenting adult, maybe. As a child, definitely not. That would be very inappropriate.
I'm going to go on her Instagram. I'm going to send her a message.
That's fine. Haley Mills playing 2 different characters, playing each other. So she's basically playing 4 different, like essentially playing 4 different characters in this movie, right?
Mhm.
In The Parent Trap. Puts in such an amazing performance as a child actor. She's so good. She's acts, sings, dances.
Does a perfect Californian accent. Does a perfect Boston accent.
Does her goddamn best. Is amazing. Just does a great job. I'm gonna Haley Mills and Parent Trap.
Can I expand on that for 1 second?
Yes.
Because her accents are not good.
No.
But I feel like this is the important thing about actors, because we talk about charisma a lot. And yeah, I guess the goal of acting is to get you to believe what they're saying.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the goals. That's reductive, but I'm going to throw that out there. But charisma counts for something. And sometimes charisma is what you need. And the thing that Haley Mills has is charisma.
Yeah.
That was the thing Lindsay Lohan had,
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
charisma. Did I believe every word they were saying? No, I
No.
didn't. But Haley Mills has a ton of charisma, and she made the part hers.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
There we go. All right, number 10. Bring it home.
I'm going to go with charisma again for this.
All right.
High Fidelity was on my top 10, was on our top 10 for the year. John Cusack in High Fidelity. This is, I think, my favorite John Cusack role of all time. And this is someone who is just an incredibly unique actor. I think the people who love John Cusack all love him for different roles. That's the thing I love about him, is like not everyone points to the same thing. And for every one of me that says like High Fidelity is my favorite thing he's ever done, there might be someone who throws out a Gross Point Blank, which is also great, or a Being John Malkovich, or a Say Anything, or I feel like there's probably one weirdo who's like, America's Sweethearts is actually pretty good.
It is pretty good.
It is pretty good.
It's pretty good.
The half he's in is pretty good.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. This is my favorite John Cusack role of all time. And I think, like, I already talked about how it's kind of best in class for this type of story and this type of, like first person narrative. He sells it. And I think the thing that makes it really work is that he also co-wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
Like, he's saying his own words, and he's saying Nick Hornby's words in a way that he's interpreted. I love him in this.
Yeah.
And he's number 10 on our list.
There we go. All right. Little interstitial before we get to our last segment here.
We got a couple of little things right here.
Well, every year we nominate a best song, and sometimes we talk about different nominations and what have you. But this year, there was an obvious choice that blew every other possibility. It's like when you come to the Oscar season and there's 3 movies nominated for Best Animated Feature, and 2 of them are Trolls World Tour and like some other thing that no one's ever heard of, and also The Incredibles or whatever Pixar movie it is this year. Like, it could not be more obvious that one is like classes above the others in that category and will be the only one that will possibly win. Also, I don't know if you know this. They just did just did the Tony Awards just this past
Yeah.
week. Did you know there was only one person nominated for Best Actor in a musical?
For real?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
There weren't that many musicals this year. It's a weird old year.
Wait, is this the year they did the previous year, or they
They
already
did the previous
that?
year, but the previous year was so short and it was an abbreviated year. So there was only one person nominated. So Aaron Tveit won for Moulin Rouge the musical, but he was the only one nominated.
Wow.
And it was pretty funny. So anyway, do you want to announce best in a similar vein? Do you want to announce best song from the nominees of one, because obviously it's the best song of the year?
I mean, the runner-up
Yeah.
is "I Dreamed a Dream."
Yeah.
From Les Miserables.
It would not even close. This one blows it out of the water.
Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush,
Obviously,
1978.
Heathcliff is big, happy of calm. It's
so cold. Let me in your window.
However high you think it is, it's higher. When you listen to it, it's oh, it is actually higher than it was in my head.
She always starts more like a cartoon character than you expect
Yeah.
at the beginning. What an amazing song. But the thing that sits with me, she didn't even read the whole book before she did that.
She just watched 5 minutes of the movie.
She's like, oh, this love story speaks to me. It's no, they're codependent and awful.
Yeah.
It's terrible, but what an amazing song.
Amazing. Oh my God.
So good. We also have, because we kind of talked about our best original properties.
Yeah.
I wanted to say worst original property of the year. Worst original property is one of your best original properties. It's Valley of the Dolls,
Incorrect.
1966.
Incorrect.
Worst original
Incorrect.
property of the year.
No.
It is garbage.
Incorrect.
It is garbage, and it is terrible.
Incorrect.
And I hated every minute
I
of
do
it.
not endorse this. You are alone.
And
in
you
this statement.
and you would think that just because I also loved every minute of it, that would be a loophole. But no, worst original property of the year. You would think.
You have no taste. No taste at all.
Line of the year. Would you like to throw out line of the year from everything? What did we repeat to each other more than anything else this entire year?
Well, should we set it up?
I mean, people listen to our Les Mis episode, right?
Yeah.
You love her like a father. It's just a change. That is a change. You're gonna have Gerard Depardieu as Valjean. That's a change you're gonna make.
It's a change you're gonna make. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Just spoiler alert. He does not love her like a father.
I mean, as we all know, the butt wants what the butt wants.
the butt. Sure. That Depardieu butt.
All right.
All right. Let's.
Do you want to slum it a little bit?
Let's bring this home.
All right. Let's
All right.
talk about Les Miserables, the wretched adaptations of the year.
All right. You going first?
Yes, I am going first.
All right. What was the bottom adaptation? Speaking of butts, bottom worst adaptation that we viewed this year.
I'm gonna go with what my heart wants, with what my butt wants, and I'm just putting it up there. And were there other ones this year that were objectively worse in other measurable ways? Yes, of course. There wasn't a single thing we watched this year that upset me more than Les Miserables 2012.
Yeah.
This musical, for all the reasons we went to. We went hard against this movie when we did that episode.
Yeah.
And I meant every word that I said. I saw it in the theater. I kind of liked it at the time, and it is, the more I think about it, the worse I feel about it. And I just hate this movie. I hate this movie.
Yeah.
It is just a colossal misfire that is the worst example of so many things that it tries to do. It is worst in class.
Yeah.
Worst in class.
It was not good.
It is a bad movie musical.
It was not good. All right. Number 2.
You have nothing else to say about that one?
No, it was not good.
Are you okay with that being
literally
number
an
1?
hour talking about it. I just have no more space in my heart for it.
I just don't want to be overly shitty about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just don't want to kick it while it's down.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Disappointed.
What's number 2 on our list?
Number 2 is, I think, maybe. So if you go back to sort of objectively,
Yeah.
what was the worst film of all films that we watched this year?
Yeah.
I think the 2004 adaptation of The Stepford Wives is
Oh.
probably pretty high on that list. It was just
If
a
you
mess.
weigh everything by budget,
yeah,
it was the worst high budget thing we watched. I think there was one or two things that were
there were a couple
worse.
things that are really bad that are on this list, but
Yeah.
yeah, this was high budget bad. It was just such a mess. I think it was trying to do that thing where it's doing a bunch of false endings and twist endings, but it just didn't work. The plot.
It's a terrible script, and the fact that it's written by the same guy who wrote Addams Family Values, which was on our top 10.
Unfortunate. Oh my God, it was It was a pickle to watch. It was not good. I mean, God bless. I think we've talked about Glenn Close before. Is like
Mhm.
God bless her. Like she gives 100% in anything she does, but she was out in space for this movie. It was just not good at all.
Yeah.
It was unpleasant to watch. Really bad. Not one single pleasant thing. I think not one pleasant moment in this movie.
I mean, I think that the lesson I learned from this is that it's so important to separate. In most circumstances, I think it's really important to separate. Not in every one, but like it's important to separate the art from the artist.
Sure.
And like it is possible to hate something and be critical of something without hating the people involved.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing I really came out feeling about this movie is that like I didn't come out feeling worse about anyone who's in this movie.
No,
Like,
no. I
this
didn't
is-
feel like, oh, Nicole Kidman,
Yeah.
that bad actor. Like, no, this is a terrible movie, and
It
she did a
didn't-
bad job, but
some-
it doesn't mean she's bad.
Sometimes you try and things don't work. And like I don't feel like it reflects badly on Nicole Kidman or Matthew Broderick or Glenn Close or Bette Midler or Christopher Walken, certainly Frank Oz, like the director. Like I don't feel like it reflects it reflects badly on all of them a little in that they showed up and I think they did a bad job, but like they're all great in their own way.
Yeah.
And this has not reduced my enjoyment of any other things that they've made. It's just this amazing example of when you can have a lot of people show up and for a bunch of good reasons it just doesn't work.
All right, number 3, over to you.
Number 3 is actually the worst thing we watched all year.
Okay, I think I got a
Objectively,
pretty shrewd idea of what it is, but go ahead.
objectively the worst. In 2003, MTV Originals
Oh my god.
made a TV movie of Wuthering Heights.
I like it's. I didn't even put it on my list because I knew you were gonna talk about it.
This is garbage. It is absolute like dumpster fire of a movie. It is amazingly bad in so many ways. Every 2 minutes there is something baffling that is happening on screen that just invites so much thought and so much attention. But like the movie itself doesn't actually require any of that thought. Like it is a truly, truly terrible movie that I hated.
Yeah, this is the modernized Wuthering Heights for those that were confused.
Starring Erica Christensen, star of Swim Fan.
Of Swim Fan, yes.
Swim Fan fame. Swim Fan. Did you know that Swim Fan fame is
It's hard
actually
to
hard to say?
You've had a cocktail as well.
This movie is garbage. Like, can I tell you my favorite batshit moment from this movie?
Yeah.
And like this perfect example of what the difference is between a bad movie like this and a bad movie like The Stepford Wives, where when you have a movie that's bad because you had no money
Yeah.
and you couldn't rise above that, there's that amazing party scene
Yes, oh
where
my
like, you know,
God.
quote unquote Heathcliff breaks in and is having a fight with people. And it's this giant, bad, awkward scene that's happening at a party full of people, but none of the people are saying anything.
Because they couldn't afford to pay them scale.
It's because none of them could be paid to have lines.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It's such a perfect example of something that normally you wouldn't necessarily know about happening behind the camera being completely 100% evident in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I love it. It should be studied. I think people should study this movie because it is worth dissecting and it's worth pulling apart and figuring out, like, in every way that you could talk about a movie like The Godfather or Citizen Kane and talk about why those movies work, you could look at this movie and talk about why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth that level of attention. It is garbage.
Yeah.
Wow, what a movie.
Yeah. What number are we on now? Number 4
to you.
So my next one is also a TV movie, but I think it doesn't quite rise to that level of dissection, as you say.
Mhm.
I think it was just like truly unpleasant to watch. Again, confusing as to the plot. Just a real misfire.
I think I know I have like a 50-50 on guessing what you're going to do. What is it?
Addams Family Reunion.
Yep, I 50-50.
It was just, my God, like, as much as the Addams Family and the Addams Family values really honored and respected, just in casting alone, like, this movie did not understand what the Addams Family was supposed to be. It was a hot mess. And I remember we just kept saying, like, what is happening? Who do they think the Addams Family are? Remember there was like an evil dog or something
Yeah.
that like kept eating hair or wigs. Like it was like an alien came down to Earth, didn't speak our language, watched the Addams Family and went, I understand what this is supposed to be. And it was like, no, you do not. It was truly mystifying
Mhm.
and deeply unpleasant.
Yeah.
Sort of honorable mention to that was that Addams Family TV series that was like the same
Yeah, but that's
actors,
like a kid's show.
but it was like a movie of a weird bad. Like the kid show was almost better.
Yeah, no, it was better.
Yeah, this was really bad. All
Yeah.
right, that was number 4.
I got no beef with the kid show. That
Yeah.
that show was fine.
I didn't
It was
enjoy it.
fine.
I didn't enjoy it.
I didn't enjoy it, but like I got no beef with it.
All right, that's fair enough. All right, number 5.
Number 5, God, I'm gonna lean into this one a little. I'm leaning into potentially being the bad guy, but I came out of it. I went into this experience not loving it, and I came out really feeling that it's kind of fundamentally broken. And it missed it missed the spirit of the original in ways that I didn't even know until we went through doing this episode. But 1995's The Little Princess, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. This and I like it. It actually hurts me to say this right now because I know a lot of people love this movie.
Yeah.
But we had to lean into the fact that we were going to be critical of something that people loved when we did the original episode.
Yeah, we were going to be critical of something that I loved every other time that I watched it when I wasn't watching it with a critical eye as an adaptation.
Yeah. But like it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It misses the point.
Yeah.
It turns the story into something else, which like the last time we saw Cuarón do that was Children of Men.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked
Yeah.
when he decided to turn the book into something else. This one didn't work. It misses everything. And it's not just the direction, but the script also misses a lot of stuff. It moves things around and gives things to other characters. It takes away. It wasn't the only one where like the dad is still alive by the end.
Yeah.
But I think it was the most egregious one.
Mm-hmm.
It really leaned into the whole like noble mystic,
Yeah.
like noble savage thing
Yeah.
of Indian.
Orientalism. Yeah.
Like it leaned into those things in a bad way, but also at the end of the day, it turned Sarah into a character who was totally different than the Sarah in the book.
Yeah.
Because this whole thing, it had that line which like, did you ever love it? Because I feel like this time you hated it.
Yeah.
Which is what was it? I'm going to be paraphrasing
all
it.
girls are princesses. Didn't your daddy ever tell you were a princess? Like, no, fuck you.
That's not the book. That's not the book.
Literally the opposite. Literally the opposite. The whole point is that her character is so elevated. She is such a good character that she's like a princess when no one else would possibly be that way in her situation. It's not all girls are princesses. It's not. It's just not. God damn it. I'm
Like,
so angry.
And you might think that that's a better message.
Yeah, you might think that.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
But that's not the thing that resonated with us in the book, and it is completely missing, and this is a misfire.
And also the movie is absolutely visually stunning. Like,
Yeah.
it is gorgeous. It's just not the book, A Little
Yeah,
Princess.
so that's number 5.
Yeah.
Do number 6.
Yeah, I
Bring it.
mean, again, I hate to like kind of stomp on people doing things as passion projects for no money, but I will because I feel like the creators of this were not like humble about their work. That Emma the musical we watched was so dire. It was
This is, by the way, Emma, a new Jane Austen musical.
it was just like amazing how bad it was and how long it survived. Remember, it was like the guy that wrote it was like
Paul Gordon.
producing it over and over and over again for like years and years and years. Remember, there was one actor who had always played Mr. Knightley or something like or Mr. Elton. I think he had always been Mr. Elton in it like every year, but this was like the 12th year that they've produced it, and he was like no longer young.
We actually have a listener who I still want to have him on the show. We have a listener who worked on one, like I think the original production of it,
Yeah.
which I just have so many questions.
Listen, I went to graduate school for theater in New York City, and I saw a number of live performances of things that were like, this is my passion project. I've adapted this thing that I love into a stage production. I saw a stage production of the movie The Conversation, the Francis Ford Coppola movie. It was very bad.
That's famously cinematic.
Yeah, just like a lot of really weird small things like that. This just reminded me of something I would have been assigned to go to see when I was in school. It was so it was just terrible. It was really, really bad.
You've never told me about. I'm kind of stuck on this right now. Like that's not like something out of The Producers, like a stage version of The Conversation.
Yeah, and it was in like this tiny, tiny theater too. Like it wasn't like a spectacular. It was like a tiny black box theater.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I will say it was not good.
That oh man, I'm so glad we watched it because we almost didn't. And then
Yeah.
I found out about it and I said we are watching this.
Yeah, and I objected.
I am so glad we did.
All right. Next one.
Um,
You're doing now number
7.
7.
You're gonna be mad at me, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for doing this. 1967's Valley of the Dolls.
No, god damn it. It was so good. I had it on my list too.
This movie is garbage. This movie is hot garbage.
Oh no, I had the 1981 Valley of the Dolls on my list.
That might be one of my alternates, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to make the list
Well,
for me.
we can sort of say that both of them were
This
qualified.
movie's shittiness is a strength, not a weakness. And I would say that most people who love it for the campiness and the crappiness of it. I have a hard time surmounting that. To me, it is just crappy the entire time.
So good. I watch it every day of the week.
Laughably bad the entire time. It is what is it? I'm Delia O'Hara. Like, I love that she thought that it's clear that she thought she was going to win an Oscar for that.
Well, she was told she was going to win an Oscar.
No, I
for
know.
That. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying because she was a fool. I'm
Yeah.
saying because other people tricked her into thinking that.
Poor
like,
Patty Duke. Like in one of her first adult roles, Patty Duke.
This movie is a mess. It is a mess. And I understand. I'm not saying anyone who loves it because it's a mess is wrong. I'm just saying I wish I could experience it the way you did. You people who love it because it's a mess, because I get that and it's super fun, but like this movie is terrible and I hated it.
All right. Well, tit for tat, I'm going to shit on something that I think you kind of maybe liked a little bit.
What's number? Well, why? What's number 9?
2001's Planet of the Apes.
What are you talking about? I don't like Planet of the Apes.
I thought you did like it.
No.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad you didn't like it because it was on our top 10 worst movies. It was really bad.
This movie is a colossal misfire. I saw it in the theater and hated it then.
It was so bad.
What made you think I liked this?
I don't know.
I liked
thought
the Charlton Heston one.
I think I thought you had like some kind of like campy attachment to it.
No, I love the makeup.
Okay.
I think the makeup.
Okay. All right. That's what I'm thinking.
The
of
Rick
then.
Baker makeup and the Danny Elfman score, I think, are fantastic. But like, I was talking before about perfect movies. A perfect movie is a movie where everything is delivering. Every aspect of the production and the casting and the writing where everything delivers. That's a perfect movie, and there's lots of them. This is the perfect example of how that doesn't happen, where you can have a couple of things that work and everything else doesn't.
Well, weirdly enough, like as you say, like the production values and like the production design are not. It's
I would argue they're terrible.
Like it's the script. The script is terrible. The script is awful. It's confusing. The plot is nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole thing with like the monkey at the end and like they go back on the spaceship. It is nothing.
I just still love
It
his
is
speech.
nothing.
His speech to rally the troop. Hey, everybody. Hey, you're people, and you descend from people who did great things, and you can do great things. Let's have a battle against the apes. It's the worst. It's the worst version of that. Worst in class.
Yeah. Like
I'm offended you thought I really liked this movie.
I thought you had some affection for it.
I have a little affection for the makeup and the music,
All right,
and that's
fine.
it.
All right. Is this number 10? Are
Yep.
you number 10? Go for it.
I feel really bad shitting on something that is someone's only directorial effort, but Arnold Schwarzenegger decided he was going to direct a movie, and he directed a remake of the movie Christmas in Connecticut, starring Diane Cannon and Chris Christopherson and Tony Curtis.
It was batshit.
It is batshit, and everyone should watch it. It should be a Christmas tradition for every single family in the country. It is an insane movie.
Like I want to watch it at Christmas. Like we're gonna watch it again. Like we're gonna watch it at Christmas time.
What a misfire! What an amazing thing that is made by someone who it's like I look at Tommy Wiseau in The Room. Like he is someone who doesn't know how to direct a movie, but also has never had any exposure to people who do know how to make a movie. So he's doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
That's the thing people love about The Room is that like it's wrong. Everything is wrong. None of it is done the way you would ever actually make one of these things, and he has no idea what he's doing. Schwarzenegger, on the other hand, is not a good director. However, he has worked with lots of great directors, and he has been on the set of so many great movies. It's not an incompetent production. It's rudderless.
It's just mystifying.
It is mystifying how this thing could exist. And I just love that Arnold Schwarzenegger, look at someone like Stallone. Stallone, who like is this action star, but also wrote Rocky and wrote and directed films like that are actually respected. Not all. But
why is Arnold Schwarzenegger's one directing credit Christmas in Connecticut? Why?
TV movie Christmas in Connecticut.
Why? How did that come to be?
It is. I love that we did it. It will never be one of our most downloaded episodes, but boy, I love that we did it, and it is just great.
I mean,
Everyone should watch it.
It is certainly will have created a tradition in our family because we will be watching it every year for years to come.
It's amazing. I think I might have to go back. Did you say that was number 10?
I thought it was number 10.
No, that was number 9.
Oh God, I have another one.
Yeah.
Oh, the
you
pressure.
get another shot.
I get another shot.
Make it good.
Again, it does feel like kicking someone when they're down because someone had a passion and not a lot of money and they were trying to do something. But again, I do feel there's sort of a smugness to this production, which is like, we did something before that everybody loved, and this is going to be even better. Emma approved.
Oh, but they had so much passion.
They had passion for something. It was very, very bad.
Because just to remind everybody, like, this was a big follow-up to, what was the Pride and Prejudice one
The
called?
Lizzie Bennet Diaries.
The Lizzie Bennet Diaries, which, like, I really,
you
really enjoyed.
liked. I didn't respond to quite as strongly.
Right.
This was like our big sequel. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to do it with Emma. And
we watched hours of it.
Hours.
It's like 80 or 90 episodes.
And I understand that part of the point of Emma, the book, is that the main character, Emma, is not like necessarily 100% likable. Like sometimes she's doing things that are annoying and that like you as a mature adult are like, oh, Emma, don't do that. Come on. Like, hey, this isn't the right way to be. And she gets kind of chastised for it and then she feels bad. So I get that. Like that's part of it. But like spending so many hours with someone who was as uncharismatic and unlikable as obnoxious as this Emma,
this grown woman
and her state senator.
Oh, that blows my mind that we talked about like line of the year. You love her like a father.
State senator.
State senator was the thing we quoted maybe just as much.
Yeah.
If not more, because
State
we had more
senator.
time with it. State Senator Elton. You are writing the universe. You are writing whatever you want. Why would you set your sights so low that he is a state senator? You could have made him a senator. It blows my mind. Blows my mind.
His political ambitions were so low. And he's so smug about being a state senator. And he talks so much about like his political career and his like campaign manager. Like he talks about his highfalutin career in politics. He's a fucking state senator. I mean, I guess maybe a California state senator has more prestige than like an Idaho state senator.
Don't try to make this work. Don't try to make this work. It was a bad choice. It was a bad choice that does not resonate.
But everyone in this is truly awful. And like, I guess the other thing that I will say is like they did a couple of things that genuinely were racist, like in the way that they treated Harriet. And like there was a conversation about how like Harriet, the only black character, isn't pretty. It was not cool. And they did a bad job. They did a bad job and they should feel bad.
I feel like this is the danger with us ending on the bottom adaptations.
No. It's like now we're ending on this note. I'm sorry, not Harriet, Jane. The conversation about like how Jane wasn't pretty.
Because Harriet was like her assistant, right? Yeah. Like I'm looking at all the stuff we did this year. It was delightful watching The Addams Family with you. It was delightful finding Christmas in Connecticut. Emma was one of those weird ones that I feel like is worth mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
That like Emma was one of those weird episodes where we liked everything that we watched. We watched like literally 5 traditional adaptations, and we liked every single one of them.
Yes.
None of them were bad.
Yeah.
And that is not a thing that happens to us, especially when you compare it to Wuthering Heights, where we like actively disliked most of them.
Yeah.
You know? Like one of them was like, I didn't even want to put it on the top 10 worst of the year, but like I went on at length about how I didn't like that. You made me read The Little Princess for the first time, and I ended up loving that book.
There you go.
I made you watch Wings of Desire for the first time.
And it was okay.
It was fun.
It was okay.
This is a fun movie. The Witches was crazy.
Yeah.
Stuart Little ended up being just this delightful thing where we did it because we were reading it to Calvin.
Yeah, that's true. That was fun.
And then we did it for the show, and that
because
was
as
so
we were
great.
reading it, like he was like he like did not. He's a little kid, but like we would be laughing like this is the finest thing I've ever done.
Cackling. That's another line of the year.
Yeah.
We did a terrible job with line of the year. There were actually a number of great lines of the year. Planet of the Apes was a weird one. Wuthering Heights was the biggest slog there could ever possibly been. Rebecca ended up being delightful. in
Les Mis
so
was
many
also
ways.
kind of a slog.
But Les Mis that is the finest thing we've ever
That's
done.
the finest
Is the
thing we've
most
ever done.
important thing we've ever done, and
Yep.
I'm so glad we tackled it.
Yeah.
And 101 Dalmatians was this great
It
capper.
was
Like
delightful.
this was a really fun year for the show, where I feel like we didn't look at as many properties this year as we sometimes do because we had a lot of multi-part ones, and Les Mis was really big. But we hit 100 episodes this year, and I just feel like it's worth it to look back on that again and just really, I feel let's pat ourselves on the back. We did 100 episodes of this, and you know who is also great? All of you.
Our kid.
Well, our
Oh.
kid is great.
We
Our
say
kid
that
is-
to each other a lot. You know who's great? Our kid.
yeah, but you know who's also great? All of our listeners.
Yeah.
You're all so cool, and so many of you reach out to us, and we enjoy talking to so many of you, and I want to keep going, and let's 5-year spectacular and 6-year, and let's keep going.
We're going to be so old. Like,
Yeah.
no one's going to listen to us. We're going to be so old. They're
Yeah,
going to be
but-
like, what do these two douchebags
Well,
have to say?
like every good podcast, we do no promotion, and we
Uh-huh.
don't know how to actually get people, like get new people to listen to our show.
So just age with us, and then we'll all die.
It'll just be us, just this little group of people. But you know that we're fun. Please listen. Please love me.
Let's wrap this up.
This has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 3 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. Third, we are on Patreon. This show will always be free, but if you become a patron, you can get access to Adapter Parish Plus, our bonus show that releases every other week between episodes of this show, and our patron-only Slack community. It's been a lot of fun, and all the details are at patreon.com/adaptcast.
You had a temper like my jealousy, too hot to grieve.